We were approached by LEGO a number of months ago in anticipation of the release of their new Mindstorms line to look at the last 15 years. So it's been 15 years since the first Mindstorm products were released. How much has play changed in that amount of time? It turns out that actually it's changed quite a bit. So one thing that Robin had mentioned earlier was the rise of digital natives, how much different life is for children who've really, if you're under 13, you've grown up with the internet your whole life. That's never been true before, right? That's a qualitative change. And I think everybody in the audience probably has anecdotal stories about relatives who, the video of kids with magazines trying to expand them because they think they're iPads. It turns out that actually goes out to data as well. So from about age 8, more than half of kids have access to a mobile device of some sort at this point. From 3 to 5, about a third of kids are able to use apps. Actually, this panel really runs the gambit of a move of digitalization into daily life that play is tracking nicely. So you can think of play as sort of a key stepping stone for crossing the chasm. So at the level of mobility, kids are driving a lot of app purchases. Families with children buy many more apps than families without children. If you look through any app store model, you'll find many kids' products in there. In a more embodied sense, you're beginning to see a lot of, the movement of a lot of digital integrated toys, like robotics, and augmented reality. So Toca Boca will demonstrate that. But again, play is a great stepping stone for moving from testing and from the labs into full-scale commercialization. And that maybe reaches its fullest extent with the switch from atoms to bits and then back to atoms with things like 3D printing. So 3D printing is an interesting technology. It's at this point where it's not quite a full manufacturing technology yet. It's really more of a sculpting technology with some really special applications, including personalization. It's gaining some traction, but where it's really valuable is in play contexts. So 3D printers are actually beginning to allow kids to, digitally render something and then create it, from their imagination. It's a tool that none of the people in this room had growing up, but people 2-3 years from now will. All of this was, what stuck out in the research. I guess the final point would be that as we create these new toys, we're really creating new ways of doing childhood, right? Childhood's more flexible than we tend to think. If you look back 200 years, you had 12 and 13-year-old children in the British Navy as officers. So midshipmen were typically brought in. They would be put in command of ships in their early teens. That's something that's sort of unimaginable with our current conception of childhood. But does imply that childhood's a flexible thing. And that as we introduce these things, we're really changing the nature of that. I like to go out on the CES floor and really just imagine how many of these things didn't exist when I was a kid, right? And yet will be commonplace for kids moving forward. At the same time, you can imagine how many experiences you had as a child. One big one that LEGO's own research actually indicated is declining rapidly is mixed age groups of kids who get together for unstructured play. That's really something that's going out, the kind of our gang model of childhood. That's something that's being experienced less and less. So tracking play for us at the Institute is really a nice way, again, as Robin mentioned, to track the change in society itself, the changing ways that we, that we approach technology. And as we look at these toys, we're really looking not only at the great things that kids are doing, but also at the tools that they're using to train themselves up for a different kind of world. I think we have a video that we're going to show that summarizes the full results of the research.
Ready?
Yep.
Here's your video.
Yeah, certainly. So on the LEGO site, there's a link to the, this has all been digested essentially into an extensive infographic, so you can download that there.
Thanks, Devin. And so where can you download the statistics in that report?
So if you go to LEGO's EV3 launch site, they'll have the infographic with the, kind of with the full report's findings there.
All right. And the whole reason you did this is because LEGO's been working for like 6 years on updating the cube. And we're going to hear about that from Camilla.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. And there you are, Devin. Good-looking guy, by the way. Is it fun being at the Institute of the Future?
The Institute for the Future is a great place to be.
Yeah. All right, so let's move to Camilla. Camilla, tell us what's going on with LEGO.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Camilla, and I'm here presenting LEGO Mindstorms EV3. Some of you hopefully know LEGO Mindstorms. The first generation came out 15 years ago, and we're now celebrating the third generation. And it's been really interesting working with Devin and his team. LEGO Mindstorms, for those of you who might not know it, is really bringing LEGO to life. It's building your LEGO robot in LEGO as we all know it, as many of us have been doing for many years. And then you add personality and gestures and behaviors digitally. So you program your robot, and suddenly your LEGO robot is alive, which is extremely interesting for children, I would say, of all ages. Some of the new things that have been important for us in developing the new generation of LEGO Mindstorm is that it has to be playful. We want children to play their way into robotics. For us, it's so important that children, learn and get into robotics, but we know it has to be fun. And some of the things we've been diving into and investigating is, how do children of 2013 perceive robots? What does a robot mean to a child today? Many of us think back at, well, we have the sort of sci-fi robots, but we also have the industry robots. And children of today don't perceive a robot as an industry robot. A robot for children today is something with a character. They want to have a personal relationship, also as your findings were saying, with the robot. They want to engage. They don't want to build something, put it on the floor, and then observe it. They really want to, engage.
So this is moving beyond the watch me toy.
Yeah.
Fair enough?
Certainly it is. And some of the things that we've done to make it playful is, I'm just going to do a small demo. This is Everstorm. He's a really cool robot. And if you put your hand in front of his eyes, Devin. Mm-hmm. Well, he was supposed to shoot you. He didn't. Well, he didn't. Is that we interact with the children can interact with the robot. We have different sensors in here that makes it, really interesting to play with it.
So that was infrared, correct?
That was infrared sensor. I have one here. If you can put your hand in front of the snake.
So who's controlling this one right here? I notice he seems to be alive. Oh my goodness, careful. How did that happen?
We have an infrared sensor. The eyes of the snake is an infrared sensor, so you can put your hands in front of it. Well, yeah.
Violent.
But not only does it react to sort of your movements, I can also control it from a smart device.
Now, how'd you do that?
So I have a smart device here, Android and iOS it works with, so you can download an app. You build your robot, you download the app, and suddenly you can play with your robot. So I can control the snake from my phone, my iPod, my iPad, whatever I have.
So you're tilting.
So I'm using the gyro sensor in the smart devices. It's really utilizing the technologies the children have in their everyday life and bring it onto their Lego toy.
That's an Android device.
This is an Android, and you can do it with iOS as well. So that's really, a very interesting thing for children. Also, on top of that, you can program your robot. So on the robots, this is the brain of the robot. You can do simple programming here. It's very intuitive, folder-based programming. So you can add behaviors by programming. On top of that, you can download our software that's for PC and Mac also, and you can do more advanced programming. But what we found out is that a lot of children today, they don't know about programming. They are used to using their devices, and they don't actually know why it's doing what it's doing. So for us, it's been important to give children an entry point to learning robotics, no matter what their skill level is. So basically, you can build a robot, and you can play with the infrared sensor. We have a remote control, so you can start there. You can start playing with your app, or you can go on to programming and then progress into more advanced programming. So really have a progression curve for children.
Björn, what do you think of this?
It's absolutely fascinating. I'm wondering I like the idea of using the touch screen together with this also, like the remote, and thinking that there's probably more to do in the combination of those two than just using it as a remote. There seems to be a lot of potential in that combination.
Actually, on top of using it as a remote, what you can do, because it's our aim that children start building and being creative, building their own robots, not only building the ones that we're providing building instructions for, but actually using their imagination. So what they can do, will be able to do in our app, is that you can actually configure your own app within our app. So suddenly I can build my own robot, I can build my own app to go with it, and I have a very personal robot with a very personal app.
I want to ask you, because particularly, isn't it great to have Lego and being talked about in a Danish accent? It's just so nice. That this has some roots on Jean Piaget and the whole idea of constructivism, and that goes back to Froebel and so on. There's a connection here. The name Mindstorms came from a book that Seymour Papert wrote, correct?
Yeah.
And of course, Papert was a student of Piaget. He started the programming language, which is fun to mention here at CES, called Logo. And Logo became Lego. Mindstorms is alive. The dream is alive. And that's what I kind of see. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and we've been working with MIT by, as you said, starting up with Mindstorms and really building upon that. And it's so important for us that what children learn from playing with Mindstorms is actually usable in other contexts in their lives.
So the big headlines here at CES are?
Build your own robot, personalize it, control it with your iOS devices, Android devices, and progress into learning more about robotics and programming your own robot.
And the brick is alive, it's viable, it's got Bluetooth, 6 AA batteries. We'll hope you think about rechargeable in the future.
Yes, you can buy a rechargeable battery for it also. Another thing to mention about the brick is that, well, and I see in here also we have kids of all ages in the group. So the brick is running Linux, which is quite incredible to have a Lego brick running Linux. So it's extremely hackable. So for those children who continue and advance into that, the sky is the limit with Mindstorms.
So you need a Windows or Mac machine. You can actually program, and the programming language is a little bit like Scratch that I noticed.
Yeah.
You can move blocks around.
Based on LabVIEW, so it's very visual based and very children friendly to learn programming that way.
Great, thank you.
Exciting.
Avi?
Yes, so I'm Avi Reichental. I'm the president and CEO of 3D Systems, which is the company that invented 3D printing. And after nearly 3 decades of solving real manufacturing problems in aerospace and defense and automotive and personalized medical devices, we felt that it's time to bring this technology to the classroom and the living room, because we fundamentally believe that everybody is creative and everybody's innovative and everybody can create. And in a world that's becoming increasingly more virtual, we saw an opportunity here, particularly for kids ages 8 and up, to give them a tool to connect virtual with actual. And so we've introduced the Cube here at CES a year ago, and it's available on Cubify.com for $1,300. We introduced the second generation here yesterday, which is faster and more accurate and more capable. But what we also concluded is that to make it really a creativity device for kids, we needed to democratize access to content creation as well. And so we've created this platform, Cubify, that allows kids now to do anything from uploading photography and using very clever apps to turn 2D photography into 3D objects. We've introduced a new drawing tool that's available on iPads now so that kids could begin to draw shapes that we could then immediately turn into 3D shapes and upload them. I just drew this ring up and upload them, and those will be readily printable. We've created an API and a DSK app that allows kids now to turn these creations into their own customizable apps. We've created a marketplace where you can come up and upload your own creations and share them with others. And the idea here is that you can begin to create and make at home without knowing sophisticated content creation programs like CAD. But as you learn through playing and as we gamify through video gaming technology the content creation, we then begin to intrigue kids to believe in their ability to create, and then we offer them a Cubify Invent CAD package, which we also offer on Cubify for $49. It's a full-fledged CAD package that allows kids to begin to learn through creating, believe in themselves, unleash their creativity, and begin to realize that they are capable of obtaining tomorrow's competitive skills today. Now, we believe at 3D Systems that we live in probably one of the most exciting periods in human history, in the sense that there is an incredible convergence of democratizing technologies that we think are going to change how we learn, how we communicate, how we innovate, how we share, how we manufacture, how we treat medical conditions in a personalized way. And that convergence of artificial intelligence, very precise and very inexpensive sensing devices, infinite computing, mobile devices, and 3D printing, the combination of that is going to change everything. And with that, we believe that we have a responsibility to reach out to kids at a very young age before we lose them into the current educational doctrines, and begin to get kids to believe in their ability to create and make and do it in a democratized way.
You're sounding like Nolan.
No, yes, I do. And I'm absolutely passionate about it. And an amazing thing happens when we begin to democratize, not just in terms of affordability, but in terms of simplicity and accessibility. And I think there is a big lesson to be learned here from the publishing universe, right? I mean, for hundreds of years, only publishing houses had the ability to publish because they had the expensive printing presses, and they had the editorial stuffs, and they had the distribution channel. The moment that publishing tools became truly democratized, with blogs and Facebook and Twitter, everybody became a publisher. And I think the same thing can happen here as a result of this convergence. And to me, what it means for kids is kids are going to be able to innovate, create, and make, which means generations of artists and creators and future entrepreneurs and engineers and innovators. And it's not just about STEM skills, it's about all skills, from communication to art to music. And the eureka, the discovery, is going to come from the interface between these fields, and all of the amazing things that can happen. And we at 3D think that we have an awesome responsibility to make that happen and to give this important competitive future skills to kids today, so that when they get into the workforce, they'll be able to create sustainable jobs and sustainable economies that would be scalable over time.
This all sounds good, but I see my poker chips are almost done here, so...
So you're ready to gamble?
Yeah, that's a great use of that. So tell me about what we're seeing here. What is this, or what are the headlines of the show?
Well, the headlines of the show is that we have now a complete ecosystem that allow kids to begin to create as easy as moving a finger on a touch screen, which is a skill that they already know how to do well.
So essentially, you've made the software is now an app.
We have a whole series of apps. You can go from your Kinect Xbox. You can go from your smartphone camera. You can go from your tablet, and you can go through a series of create and assemble apps that are like video games, because what we also discovered is that kids learn best and in the most impactful way when they play, when it's a game, when it's playful, and when the levels increase in complexity over time.
So the big story is it's simplified over last year, and also there's the app connection. What's the price of this?
So this is $12.99.
$1,300.
$1,300.
What's this
plug
called?
and play.
What's it called? The Cube?
It's called the Cube. It's available on cubify.com.
This also won a Cappy Prize. So there are many 3D printers out there. This captured sort of, I think, the overall ease of use and so on. And
it won many awards in the last 12 months, and the new and improved one is that much better. It's faster, quieter, safe for home use, meets all the standards for kids' home use, and amazingly portable, lightweight.
It's lighter.
And battery operated. As you can see, we're sitting here and we're printing, and we can print for 6 hours from a battery.
Okay, great. So so there's the Cube, and you can. Did I ask you when it's on the store shelves?
It's available to order online today.
All right. Great.
Cubify.com.
Thank you. And I'm going to just jump back here now that I figured out this and go back to Mindstorms. Mindstorms is, what's EV3 stand for?
Evolution 3.
Evolution 3.
Yeah, it's generation 3.
All right. And it's going to be in stores when?
Second half, 2013.
Okay. And then another thing that you guys did is that you come with 17 robots that are pre-designed, so it's easier to just get out of the box and get started.
You can build 17 different robots. We're providing building instructions for 17 different robots. Actually, we're providing 3D building instructions also for 5 of them.
So there's some nuts and bolts for you guys. I'm sorry, I finally figured this out, Carrie. So
It's fine.
I think we got it now. Okay, great. Questions about the 3D printer, Bjorn?
How can I get one very, very quickly? We've been playing with the idea of this, actually. I mean, as I'm going to talk about in a minute, we do digital toys, but I mean, the connection, like you say, between the two is something that we've been talking about and sort of are playing around. We've actually ordered a 3D printer for the office to just see what we can do. I mean, it's fascinating.
It'd be really cool to see what you guys think up with that, right? So thank you. And do you guys have any questions about 3D printing?
Well, you know, interestingly enough, one of the Lego Mindstorms fans, he actually made a 3D printer out of Lego Mindstorms. Yeah. So that's quite amazing.
Hey, I'm going to make a couple Lego cubes. Can you make Lego blocks with a 3D printer?
I'm not sure allowed to.
That's what we're talking about. Okay, Bjorn.
Right, I'm going to go up. Okay, let's get this out. First things first.
Before you do, Bjorn, this is the CEO of Toca Boca from Sweden, now lives in San Francisco, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Björn, Jeffery, and I should do a better job introducing you all, but Bjorn's team just won the Cappy Prize. Toca Boca has become a household name at every bus stop, and has answered the question, how do I make money and succeed in the app in the 99-cent context? And so take it away, Bjorn.
Thank you. So I really work for this guy. This is Carl Otto Bonnier, or at least I work for his kids, so a few generations down the line. It is, as you were mentioning, ironically, a 200-year-old publisher. And just like you were describing, this is a bit of a tickle for them. How do we manage the democratization of publishing? It's an interesting potential, but if you are a publisher, it's a little nerve-wracking too. And I used to work for the research and development team at this publisher, trying to work out what happens when technology and publishing and consumers meet. Generally speaking, what happens is that technology and consumers meet, and media doesn't do anything about it. They just watch and think, that's what we should have done. That's sort of the way it is. And I was attempting to sort of find other ways of doing that. And what I was working with was the idea of taking magazines into a new space. What happens when these touchscreens come along. So what does that do to publishing? It does a lot of interesting stuff, but what does it do to someone like us? So we spend a lot of time thinking about when these devices move into people's homes, how they are used and how they're shared. More specifically, we looked at and thought about the larger-based screens that are something that you buy for maybe the family. You buy one, maybe not now anymore, but at least initially you bought one and then you shared it. So it's a shared piece of hardware, although the software, generally speaking, is not shared. It's the same operating systems basically running on the small phones as on the big tablets, and that's not entirely similar to how that use case actually looks. So we looked around this and we're sort of thinking, what are people doing more specifically? And one thing that we saw, of course, is that the touchscreen lowers the threshold for children to interact with digital media. Basically, a lot of kids were having their first interactive media experience through these devices. So instead of doing the regular route and just taking whatever we already had in books and newspapers and television and everything and just putting it on there, although we have done that too, to various degrees of success, we decided, what if we did something completely different? What if we made a more of a playful experience and a product which was intentionally designed for this environment straight away? And in order to do so and to try to work out what was coming, we looked back and we found that there's many models of doing this, but this is one model of sort of looking at different ways of playing. There's active play, which is running around, playing sports, being physical in different ways. There's make-believe, which is very much about role-playing, imagination, coming up with fantasy, those sorts of things. There's manipulative play, Lego, good example of that, construction, making things, puzzles. There's creative play, which is about music, drawing, arts, craft. And then finally, in this model, it's learning play, which is games and books, which are defined as learning as they are linear. You learn how to go through it. It's something which has a beginning, a middle, and an end, generally speaking. So if this is the way that kids play, and generally speaking, kids like all of these types, and it varies depending on ages and stages, but you don't just like one type. You generally like all of them, but to a varying degree. And in order to try to navigate in the thinking, okay, so what's next, we have to think, well, what's actually a constant? Well, walking around CS is fairly obvious that the technology and the devices is anything but a constant. It's like it's continuously new stuff all the time. But a few things that are constant is that the way that kids play changes, but what they like tends not to change that much. It's different ways of doing the same sort of things, but on a very fundamental level, a lot of those things are fairly similar. Then you can stimulate that and make it better and enhance it in different ways. So we took this model and we sort of applied it to the App Store and saying, okay, so if this is how kids like to play, generally speaking, how are these needs for play being addressed in an App Store context? And we found about this many apps that were trying to appeal to children to be active, about this many appealing to their imagination, manipulative play, creative play, and about that many that were looking at some sort of learning through books and games. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that sort of play, definitely not. I just don't think that this is a balanced view of how play in these new contexts should actually be. There's room for more. So we decided to look in the other end of the scale and sort of say, if we were to do more around make-believe and creation, what could that sort of thing be? So leaving the big round red box alone, we sort of left games and we started looking at, okay, if we don't do games, what happens if we start making, in an iPad and a touchscreen-based context, what happens if we make a digital toy instead? A product where you can't win, where you can't lose. It's there to spark your imagination, to have fun with. There are no rules. There's no time stress. It's just fun, just like a frisbee or a hula hoop or blocks of Lego for that matter. It's something that you choose to play with in whatever way you want to. But how can we do that in a touchscreen-based environment? So we did a lot of research, looked around. There's a lot of interesting thinkers in the adjacent spaces, at least. One of the more interesting ways of taking it on was to look at traditional blockbuster toys and sort of saying, well, what was the fundamentally, the fundamentals of successful toys historically? What were and what of the characteristics in these products can we lift out and in some way apply in this new context instead? So I thought I'd show you one version of what we came up with and seeing how you can use technology not as a replacement of regular play, but something that can play together with regular play. And hopefully we have some sound. Yes, that sounded very promising. Okay. The tea party has completely removed the whole notion of cleaning up afterwards. Thank you.
So there you have it. The roots, starting with Piaget, with being continued in the app age, and the transfer to running on an Android tablet, which is very cool. We've got 3D printing. You can't get more concrete than that. So the ideas can actually become concrete. The bridge between abstract and concrete is happening. It's made easier now that you can design these things on a tablet, on a touch screen, flip them over to your printer and make them. And then you've got the whole app space just decoded for you, ladies and gentlemen, by one of the leaders. I think that's a good set for some questions. Right, Darren? So Darren's going to walk around with a microphone. Let's open it up and let you guys ask this panel whatever you want. Nice trumpet playing on that slide thing there, Björn. I might need to play that.
Good morning. Beth Marcus, Playwrific. I have a question that sort of ties the last panel to this panel. There's a guy at MIT, Woody Flowers, who talks about how education is changing and said in one of his talks how the innovation is going to come from outside of the schools and change learning that way so that it doesn't have to push against this huge infrastructure. And I just wondered what the panel thought about that in the context of what was said before. You know, how can we support that going forward? To take the great things you guys are all doing, let kids experience them, and have them infiltrate the school system.
Certainly, Lego Mindstorms is infiltrating the,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So Mindstorms is actually available for classroom as well. So we have a curriculum-based version for schools. But what's important for us is that lots of children don't meet Mindstorms in school. So they have the ability to learn while they play their way into robotics. So really supporting children. And then we have we have approximately 300,000 children globally competing on Mindstorms, using Mindstorms in competitions. And that's a great way for children to learn to collaborate and problem solve using a hands-on experience. So they build their toy, but at the same time, it's a minds-on experience because they need to program it to solve the task it has to do.
And Abby, you wouldn't mind if the the Dallas Unified School District bought a few of those printers, would you?
No, absolutely not. And in fact, this year for the 90th anniversary of the Scholastics Alliance for Young Writers and Artists, we teamed up with them to create a new category called Future New, and we're participating in sponsoring the countrywide competition in an area that has nothing to do with traditional STEM skills, because we believe that this is another way for us to do our best to get into schools and get kids to be exposed to this amazing creative platform early on. And we are willing to contribute, donate, incubate, participate in any way to avail young kids of the possibilities so that they have access and they get stimulated by what's possible.
I think one of the things to remember is one of the ways to become a huge educational reformer, you could call Steve Jobs one, is just make a good product, sell it at a reasonable price, and let the schools buy it. And I think you guys are doing that. And of course, Toca Boca is not allowed in a lot of classrooms. For good reason. When you say it, teachers go, "Oh, Toca Boca, there goes that child," and that can be a good thing.
Well, we're actually being used by a lot of educators, maybe not so much in a formal classroom setting, but in speech-language pathology. We've designed products which are intentionally open-ended, although not intentionally designed for speech training, but they're open-ended as in they're like a canvas. You can play Tea Party in any way, and also they completely reduced from text and language, which means that speech trainers use these apps to engage children, and then they're playing and they're doing the speech training as they go along. The kids don't even really know that they are speech training, but they are while they're playing.
There are also apps that can be seen as huddleware. In other words, a group of kids can gather around and play the Tea Party together, and we're seeing that sort of highly social play that teachers go, yes, this is great. So thank you for that question. Darren, you got Mandeep?
On a similar vein, I think one of the key interesting challenges of technology is that it can have the power to connect, right? And a lot of the stuff that you presented really shows about individual achievement. I'm not being critical. Actually, I think it does. When my kids play with the Lego Mindstorm, it's my son who takes it over and doesn't let anybody else play, right? And the same would be true from the digital printing. It's the thing that I created. And I'm wondering if you're seeing interesting avenues, again, independent of the competitions where you can physically compete against one another, to infuse collaboration and distributed collaboration. If you take a look at the most popular children's technologies, they're about distributed gaming, right? Again, this transition shows a meaningful step towards things that are actually creative and constructive as opposed to just distributed gaming. But I'm wondering if you're seeing in the case of the Mindstorms or in the case of the 3D printing and even in Toca Boca, like, are you starting to see new avenues where people are comfortable getting on distributed platforms and participating before the thing is complete as opposed to afterwards?
I think all of you guys are sort of creating communities, and the word community is becoming more. One of the most amazing ones is Scratch. I mean, that I've seen, and I've had kids that I've worked with participate in, where ideas get stolen and grabbed, and certainly with 3D printing, it's a big mashup now, and I find that incredibly exciting. That the sort of this training wheels for sort of how the real world works.
For Mindstorms, we have a great community online now, and with the new product coming out in the second half, we'll improve that platform. So what we actually allow children to do is they can upload their own either instructions for how to build a robot or a program to the robot to our website. So as an example, you and I built the same robot, and you made a program for him. You can upload it to our website, and I can download your program and put it on my robot. So really, the sharing is crucial, and by that encouraging children to, oh, how did you do that? That sounds interesting, and get them to share and all that.
And isn't it fun to look at this panel right here and see all the nationalities that are represented, and that these things don't have borders anymore, and that the ideas can flow freely from all around the world, and that's incredibly exciting. Darren, we have time for one more? We're going to start transitioning to the next panel, but we don't have time for one more.
Anybody else have a question?
Well, I love to stay on schedule, so I'm going to do that. And boy, you guys have been fabulous. Thanks for sharing your products. You're putting your money where your mouth is. It's actually, you're not just talking about play and talking about learning. You're making it and giving people options. So it's great to see the evolution over last year. So I'll formally dismiss you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.